Vikings GM losing job against backdrop of Sam Darnold's Super Bowl run and why the decision wasn't as reckless as it seems. In the NFL, timing can define careers just as much as talent evaluation. Few situations illustrate that reality more clearly than the Minnesota Vikings' decision to part ways with general manager Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, a move that unfolded against the uncomfortable backdrop of Sam Darnold leading the Seattle Seahawks to the Super Bowl. On the surface, the optics are brutal. The quarterback Minnesota chose not to re-sign is thriving on the league's biggest stage, while the executive who made that call is now out of a job. It feels neat, emotional, and almost inevitable to connect the two. But the truth, as it often is in football, is more layered and far less reactionary than the headlines suggest. To understand why Adofo-Mensah's decision wasn't as wild as it now appears, it helps to revisit the philosophy that guided him from the moment he arrived in Minnesota. Just months after the Vikings hired Adofo-Mensah as general manager and Kevin O'Connell as head coach in 2022, conversations with both men revealed a front office deeply focused on long-term sustainability rather than short-term comfort. Their vision centered on elevating overall roster talent, defining clear championship thresholds, and, above all, being brutally honest about the quarterback position. Adofo-Mensah was particularly direct. The one asset where you get nervous about not burning it down is quarterback, he said at the time. Teams, he explained, are simply more likely to win the Super Bowl if they have a truly elite quarterback. Then came the line that framed nearly every major decision he would make afterward. It's very unlikely to have that quarterback. That belief wasn't cynical, it was realistic. It acknowledged the harsh math of the NFL, where only a handful of players at the position can consistently elevate a franchise into championship contention. Fast forward to last offseason when the Vikings faced a crossroads. Sam Darnold had just delivered the best season of his career, leading Minnesota to 14 wins while completing 66.2% of his passes for 4,319 yards, 35 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. For a quarterback who had gone 23-35 as a starter across 6 uneven seasons, it was a dramatic turnaround. But Adofo-Mensah and the Vikings didn't evaluate that season in a vacuum. They had just invested a top 10 draft pick in J.J. McCarthy, a quarterback they believed possessed a higher long-term ceiling. McCarthy was expected to be healthy by the start of the season. The Vikings also believed they had a viable contingency plan in Daniel Jones, who became available midseason and fit their preferred offensive structure. Most importantly, the front office returned to its core philosophy: championship thresholds. If you don't have that threshold, you don't win. That's very binary, Adofo-Mensah had said years earlier. The way you can screw up in this job is deceiving yourself that you're there. From that perspective, the question wasn't whether Darnold had played well. It was whether he had shown enough to justify a long-term, high-dollar commitment, one that could limit future flexibility if he regressed to the mean. That doubt wasn't unfounded. Even during Minnesota's 14-win season, cracks appeared at the worst possible time. In the Vikings' regular season finale and wildcard loss, Darnold completed just 53% of his passes across 2 games, throwing 1 touchdown against 1 interception. In the playoff loss to the Rams, he absorbed 9 sacks, struggling under pressure when the margins were thinnest. When Seattle offered Darnold a 3-year, $100.5 million contract with $55 million guaranteed, Minnesota balked. It wasn't an indictment of Darnold as a player. It was a refusal to lock the franchise into a quarterback they weren't convinced could consistently clear the Super Bowl bar. In the moment, that decision aligned squarely with conventional NFL thinking. Teams avoid overpaying at quarterback unless they believe the player can be the difference in January and February. Many general managers have made the same call and been praised for it when the gamble worked. This time, it didn't. Seattle provided the perfect ecosystem for Darnold to thrive: a strong run game, an elite defense, and a system rooted in the Shanahan-McVay coaching tree that he had now spent 3 years learning. On his 5th team and in his 7th NFL season, Darnold finally looked settled. The result was another 14-win season, a number 1 seed in the NFC, and a Super Bowl appearance, the kind of outcome that reshapes narratives overnight. Meanwhile, Minnesota's alternative path unraveled. McCarthy missed 7 games due to injury and finished the season with 1,632 passing yards, 11 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. Daniel Jones, whom the Vikings hoped to retain, left for Indianapolis, where he led the Colts to an 8-5 start before tearing his Achilles. From the outside, it looked like everything that could go wrong did. Still, even as the results deteriorated, Adofo-Mensah remained consistent in how he evaluated the situation. In a January interview, he admitted that the decision kept him up at night, a telling acknowledgement of the uncertainty baked into quarterback evaluation. "It's easier to go and be revisionist and results-based," he said, "but really thinking through what we had at the time, I still understand why we did what we did." That quote may now define his tenure. It reflects the uncomfortable truth that sound processes don't always produce favorable outcomes, especially in a league as volatile as the NFL. The Vikings ultimately decided that the accumulation of decisions, not just the Darnold move, warranted change. Team owner Mark Wilf was careful to frame the firing in cumulative terms rather than as a reaction to one quarterback thriving elsewhere. "It's not about any one decision or move," Wilf said. "We just didn't feel confident going through the entirety of the offseason, an additional draft and free agency with this structure." That distinction matters. This wasn't a knee-jerk response to Darnold reaching the Super Bowl. It was a broader assessment of organizational direction, urgency, and confidence in leadership. Ironically, Darnold's success also challenges one of the league's longest-held assumptions, that only elite early career quarterbacks with immediate stardom can reach the sport's highest level. The Seahawks proved that a quarterback without all-pro accolades, playoff pedigree, or a top-tier reputation can still thrive if surrounded by the right infrastructure and given time. That lesson cuts both ways. It validates patience, development, and system fit, concepts that Adofo-Mensah himself believed in. It also underscores how thin the margin is between patience paying off and patience being labeled failure. The Vikings can still point to McCarthy's youth and developmental timeline. He is only 1 year into playing and 2 years into learning an NFL offense rooted in modern principles. His story, as the organization insists, is far from complete. And yet, Darnold's journey will linger as a cautionary tale. It will remind future general managers, including Adofo-Mensah's successor, that quarterback careers are rarely linear, and that context can matter as much as raw talent. As Wilf emphasized, Minnesota prefers to operate with pragmatism rather than panic. The challenge now is ensuring that the next decision at quarterback reflects both lessons, the danger of overcommitment and the cost of letting patience slip away too soon. In the end, Adofo-Mensah's downfall wasn't rooted in recklessness. It stemmed from a philosophy shared by many NFL executives, applied at the wrong moment in an unforgiving league. Sam Darnold's Super Bowl run doesn't erase that logic, but it does expose how cruel the timing can be when the process and the outcome diverge. For the Vikings, the hope is that this chapter informs the next one. For the rest of the league, it's a reminder that even sound decisions can age poorly when football decides to tell a different story.